Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, ma.
Hope you can hear me loud and clear.
I can hear you, ma.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Trying to stop my music now. I don't know where to stop. Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, ma.
Good morning. Hope you can hear me loud and clear.
I can hear you, ma.
All right. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Good morning.
Trying to stop my music now. I don't know where to stop. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, ma.
Good morning. Hope you can hear me loud and clear.
I can hear you, ma.
All right. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
All right. Good. Okay. Okay, so I think there's a feedback somewhere. I don't know where it's coming from. So is somebody using two devices there or something? Because I can hear feedback. That's the problem. Okay, so good morning. My name is Titi Ojo, and I'm on this call with you this morning. I want to welcome everyone. Somebody, yeah, there's a feedback. Is it done? Okay, so I'm just trying to figure, okay, just a minute. I think I know where the feedback is coming from. Let me mute this. I think I know. It's from this, it's from here. Okay, so trying to figure where my feedback was coming from. And I think I have figured it out. Okay, yippee. So I want to welcome everyone. Zainab, Sarah, Chidi. Happy to see you, Chidi. Happy to see you, Garba. Glorious. Wow, you're welcome. Oluwase Ireti, Abiba, Dr. Waka, Dr. Lakunle. Let me see who else is on the call. Others will join us as we move on. We only have 2 hours this morning, and the other 2 hours will be later in the day. So this is a fulfillment of what I promised to do with those that bought the book, especially during the pre-launch, because we also have those that bought the book during the launch. Actually, we had a very fantastic book launch. So this morning, I want us to go through, we're just going to do a quick book review. And from the book review, I'll dive into some major parts that I think is very, very important to help you take some decisions. Of course, the book is a guide, and that will remain a guide for you and with you. So that's very important. If you also look at the back of the book, there was a link to a drive. So as we keep having templates that will be useful for you, I keep putting it there. And you might be able to check or use as you progress in your expert journey. So I'm welcoming you again. My name is Titi Ojo, and I'm the author from Nigeria to the World. Yesterday, I did a poll on the group to know how many of us have read a chapter, you've finished it, you've read more than one, or you've not even got your book delivered to you. I know there are 2 people out of the 3 that they were to pick it up, and they are yet to do that. And there's one person, I think probably we thought you were delivered it. But beyond that, I believe you have your book with you this morning. There'll be some conversations, and that's very important for me. We need to have the conversation. So like I said in the chat room, that I will just do a quick run through of the book. It's a quick book review. Chapter 1 talks about the urgency and opportunity of exporting from Nigeria. That's what chapter 1 tells us. But definitely before I go to chapter 1, there's a preface, there's an introduction, and there's an interesting story there. It also helps you to read about my own journey on how I got got here. So chapter 1 takes you into the urgency and opportunity of exporting from Nigeria. And why I usually start with that, even in my classes, is to let you know that exporting from Nigeria helps Nigeria in several ways. This is how Nigeria can earn foreign exchange. That's how Nigerians can also benefit from FX earnings if the government can get that done on a large scale. Some will tell us that, yeah, even we don't have enough in the country, why are we exporting it? But countries export for good reasons. It's also part of your contribution to the world economy. So, and it's also around, there are countries that don't have what you have. There are countries that have what you don't have. So many times when it comes to exporting, it's also an exchange of goods and services for which our country can earn from it and can be part of that ecosystem. Because then you can also earn premium and earn FX for what you do and for what you produce. And then, so assessing that's the first. And then, of course, I wrote about what we've done, how far what we've done in that space. Nigeria's biggest exports, crude petroleum, of course, has been one of our largest exports anyway. But here we're talking about non-oil. So here we're looking at sesame seeds, urea, cocoa beans, cashew nuts, aluminum, ginger, turmeric, spices. Spices are very, very good exports, truly. And Nigeria, we have a basket of that. And then here I talk about top export destinations: Netherlands, India, Spain, USA, France, Indonesia, China, UK, Germany. And now we're talking about the AFCFTA, that's the African continent. So that's what that first chapter talks about. And of course, every chapter has something I call the reflection and action for you to look at or take, that chapter you've read forward. I think I mentioned NEPC in this book about 78 times because I actually now went back to check how many times I mentioned NEPC. And there's a reason. NEPC on their website has a lot of resources that can be helpful and useful to you in checking updated information about the market. So that's very important. So yes, if you're someone that's interested in exports, make NEPC your friend. Very key. Even I check for the NEPC website once in a while to see is there anything new going on here, even though I visit the office as well regularly. So chapter 2 talks about assessing your readiness for exporting. This is very, very, very important because we realize that many people jump into this export business without being export ready. And that is why they're stuck. That's why they're stuck. So for example, export readiness, we'll talk about how sustainable you can be. Somebody right now says, I need a container of Zobo leaves. Let's just assume Zobo leaves. Yeah, you put out there that you have products, right? And then someone says he wants a container, and then you begin to scratch your head. Because where do you get a container from? So export readiness helps you to sit down and think through the market, think through the product, think through quality issues. And we're going to take the export readiness check once I'm done with this book, because that's where we're going to start from. Taking the export readiness check helps you to also know where you are with the knowledge of export. We don't also enter a market without the knowledge of it. It's not the best way to run business because the export market and the local market are two different things. I'm telling you, they are not the same in any way. In the export market, issues of compliance plays a major role. Regulation, oh my God, plays a major role. There are legal issues, plays a major role when it gets to export market. Volumes is the volume of what you're able to export plays a major one. The quantities, that's the volume. The quality of what you're exporting, the pricing. So there's so many things that comes into this conversation when it comes to export. And export readiness is where it all starts from, having a knowledge of how export works and how the export market works. In this chapter 2 on export readiness, a friend, my very good friend, Bamdele, that's the CEO at 3Team PEX, I developed a 15 criteria for export readiness evaluation. And so I used that here and I gave the credit to it right here. It's a very elaborate one, but I also had a very small, easy to quickly fill up form that is here too. That can quickly help to just decide. Also, you have export readiness checks on NEPC website. There's also another one there. So regardless, anyone you choose to use, but for this training, I'm going to use the abridged one that is on page, I think is on, towards the end of that chapter, you see an abridged one, and I'll come back to it when I'm done with this book. But of course, your export readiness accesses several things: your market face, your pricing, even your technology and all of that. So that's important. Knowing your buyers, what they're looking for, very key. Also know that this book talks about tools. So when you see some footnotes in the book, the footnotes are references. And in cases where you see footnotes around tools, it means I can also visit those tools. I'll try and see whether I can share one with us before we're done this evening, because it really helps. There's what we call the ITC Export Potential Map. It's a very powerful tool to also know the export potential of Nigeria in some countries. And it helps you to make some decisions really on where you want to play and what you want to do in those markets. Okay, so please note that we'll come back to the export readiness self-assessment checklist on page 31. I'm done with this book review. Okay, so it's on page 31, and we're going to do a quick scoring there. Then chapter 3 of this book talks about your market entry and export plan. So a major issue here for many people that want to export is market entry. Market access is a major, major issue. And that's where the work is. I must tell you, that is really where the work is. Okay? That's where the work is. You have to understand also now that when we're talking about exporting, we're talking about direct and indirect exporting. And that has been explained in page 36. Direct exporting will mean you're right in that market, and you might have an office there, you can even be a sister company, but it's sitting right there. So you're exporting directly from you to your customer. And it has advantages, and the advantages were spelled out here. Customer relationship, ownership, market intelligence access. You make maximum profit because you're not just exporting through an intermediary, they'll charge you. Brand control because it is your brand. So you can, your brand control, you're interacting with the customer every day, and conversations can help you to manage your brand. But of course, it has its own downsides at the initial stage. Because yes, there are some risk involved. If you don't know that market very well, it's better you start with an intermediary that understands the market and you learn through that. Very key. Or someone that can actually help you to access that market. And here we're saying that you need to master foreign markets, regulations, and logistics, which you may not know from the onset. And so the disadvantages of exporting is just at the early stages before you get a good grasp of the market. And indirect exporting involves intermediaries like export trading companies, agents, local distributors, cultural firms in those places. That also is very important. The advantages is they already know the market risk, so they know how to run around that. And even when you're doing your agreement with such people, you would have, the risk assessments would have been made. You would have reached some terms with this particular intermediary on whether it goes successfully. There are issues. They take the risk. They bear the risk on your behalf. But one thing that is the challenge is in this one is because intermediaries may prioritize their own relationships over your brand development. So that may be those issues. But I tell you, you don't just jump right in. It's always good to at least depend on someone that knows the market at the onset. It's very, very important. So there's the export market strategy. So we have the strategy decision matrix that I had mentioned here. And I'm not sure if I put that in the drive, but I'm going to upload that so that you can be able to use it. The export decision matrix helps you to look at market entry and helps you to look at market selection. How do I look at the market? How do I know what works in this market and why is it suitable for my kind of product? So that one is very, very important. And there's a case study here on this chapter 3 about AfriSpice Nigeria Limited and how they're able to leverage on market entry strategies. And what else does this tell us? Also, that for market entry strategies, you need to first of all, adapt your product to the market. So it's part of your research. There's a lot around having a research around the markets you're interested in. How did they like your product? In what form did they like it? We're coming back to the export readiness check in a bit so that you can look at it. Then, of course, part of your export readiness is to build capacity. So I'll try a bit on building capacity, okay? So the market that you're exporting to is not just buying, is not interested in buying from you in trickles, or just send me 2 bags, just send you 3 bags. What sustains in that market is repeated purchase as often as this buyer wants to buy from you in the right quality per time, in the right quality per time. And that's why you also need to have standards in what you're producing. so that you're not sending a particular export or consignment to someone the first time, and the next time is requesting from you, the quality has dropped. That is one of the greatest undoings of many of exporters in Nigeria. So you export a particular product, but the next time is coming back, if the person is ordering again, quality has dropped. That may be the last time the person is going to buy from you. So I mentioned that we're going to look at a particular chapter about export contracts. And yes, I plan to take you through that as well before we finish these 2 sessions today. So there are case studies in here. Let's see. So let's move on, because I want to just quickly use this to run through this and then we get straight to the point. And in this chapter 3, I actually mentioned, I stated out how someone was able to develop his own export strategy over a period of time. So exports is a journey. I keep saying it is a journey. For some of us that have been able to export either products or services, it's a matter of time. But you know what? It's not a sprint. It's not a sprint. No, it's not a sprint. You build until you know you are ready. Okay? Then chapter 4 in this book talks about legal frameworks and product certification for export. This is so important. Some of you may be lawyers here. I know that anything around the law is very important. Countries have their legal frameworks. Nigeria has its own legal framework for which you must adhere, even with your own products. So the part 1 here talks about Nigerian export laws and documentation for products if you're exporting products out of this country. And part of that regulatory framework is SON, as NAFDAC, NAQS. Some of them have to inspect your products before they're gone. I'm going to share a story with you, and it's a true story because I had a call with a Nigerian in the UK early last week, and something had happened between her and the person that supplied to her dried fish. Please remind me that after I do this book review, I'll start with that story, okay? So that you know how serious this could be. Then we have compliance with international trade regulations, for which, of course, Nigeria signed. We have this trade treaties that we've signed with countries. And the fact is that some of those treaties we've signed also gives us benefits in those countries. So it's also good to understand what countries that Nigeria has ended agreements with when it comes to exports from Nigeria. Then also we have documentation. Documentation is, if you ask me, almost the most important thing when it comes to moving your goods. Logistics, documentation is so important. Your commercial invoices, your packing list, your bill of lading, your invoices, your certificates, and all of that plays a great role. Let me say quickly that anyone that wants to export from Nigeria, first you must register with NEPC. So when you go to the nepc.gov.ng website, if you go to the website, you're going to see it, where you can register and get an exporter's certificate or an exporter's license, because that's also very important. And why is this important? Because you don't know what you can face when you enter when anything happens, and you expect NEPC to be able to defend you. And they say, well, you're a registered exporter. You said, no, there's a problem there already. Also, some people from some other countries want to buy, but they want to be sure that you're recognized as an exporter in your country and you are traceable. Please note the word traceable. Part of traceability, beyond knowing the source where you source your raw materials from, is also being able to reach you, okay? So when the buyer knows that you're registered as an exporter in your country, there's some confidence that he has in doing business with you. Another thing that a buyer might want as confidence in you is that you belong to a trade association. Really, because belonging to an association goes beyond just paying dues. It also shows that some people know you, at least they know you. They know you, they've done business with you. And probably you've been a very good member of the association. These 2 things are very critical for traceability of persons. Then of course, products is another thing, definitely. But for you as a person, if you want to go into the export space, be part of a trade organization, just be part of one. And if you want to be active there too, I think that's important. Sign register. So not because of I'm a member of MPLAN, but I am the executive secretary of the Network of Practicing Non-Oil Exporters of Nigeria. And you see it referenced in this book. You can be a member of MPN, really. The dues are not much, but at least you're a member of that. And once you're even a member of MPN, you get a certificate of membership. It can be something that if someone is asking you, well, do you belong to any association, any trade association that is known, you can say, well, I'm a member of this association and here's my certificate. It's very helpful. And maybe after this session, you can just message me, I'll send you a link to just read about membership. But that's very key. Traceability is also key when it comes to people dealing with you from across the borders. Very key. So this page 69 of this book, I talked about prohibited exports from Nigeria. And that's page 69. It's important to understand prohibited exports so that you don't put yourself in a quagmire of some sorts. Getting these things together, thinking it's going out of here, and then the customs deny you and say, well, you cannot take this out because it's prohibited. And it's also on the Nigeria Customs Service website. So you can also visit Customs Service website. As on that page, you see it on the footnote, customs.gov.ng, prohibited exports. And I think they might be upgrading that. In any case, if their policies around prohibit of exports, then you keep finding that on the, you keep seeing that on the, let me see, let me pin. You keep seeing that on the Customs Service website. So, and if you see the items there, we have maize, raw timber, and the reason for restriction is stated. So maize is food security legislation, 2024 Senate bill. Raw timber is for forest conservation. And also that's why we will say if, those days people would export charcoal, but now it's getting increasingly harder to export charcoal that is from trees that are felled, okay? But we can also create charcoal from other things. I hope even from coconut barks and all that. So it also comes to the point of us being able to do research on alternative ways to create some of these things. But charcoal is one of Nigeria's really good exports. And you know why? Because these countries are exporting from, they do a lot of barbecue, they warm their homes, they do all of that. They have conservation policies. They don't just cut down their trees. So they come and buy from you that can cut your tree anyhow and sell charcoal to them. Hope that's why it's like that. But also we realize that even for conservation of our forests, of wildlife, we're also now beginning to see that, no, we shouldn't be doing that. But raw timber is for forest conservation. Raw hides and skins is to encourage local processing. So raw hides and skin, we know that we have a lot of that from Kano. And you see those that come to Kano and just take our skin, hides and skin, and then make it into really lovely bags. And we now buy the Gucci's and all of that. We buy the Gucci's for like 50 times the price of the hides and skin. So it's also to encourage local processing, actually. At least process it to a point before you can export. And I think we're making good on that. One of the reasons why I say we should not be eating momo and all that. Scrap metals is to retain for local industries. Unprocessed rubber is to support domestic manufacturing. Artifacts and antiquities, and endangered wildlife is also prohibited. There's this pangolin, yeah. So now there's a whole lot around this pangolin. It's an animal, and it was also a very good export because they use the skin for all sort of things. And I think there's been a lot of campaign against endangering that particular species. So if you also look at that chapter, I think we're still in chapter 3 or chapter 4. What chapter am I in? Let me be sure you're following me. What chapter am I in? Let me know you're following me. I won't tell you the chapter. What chapter am I in right now? So I know you're following. Somebody tell me. She said this. I'm now on 4. Okay? So chapter 4 also talks about mandatory and voluntary certification. And this, I will talk a bit about it. Mandatory certifications are required by law before exporting some categories of food. So locally, NAFDAC is our own mandatory certification in Nigeria for anything food, drugs, and all of that. So in Nigeria, and anybody else sell in Nigeria as well, they'll sell on the shelf. You notice that they have to get their NAFDAC certification because it's mandatory. In America, if you're exporting food products, processed, you have FTA, which is the Food and Drug Registration for US markets. So within this Nigeria, we have SMEs that get the FDA certification, even done in Nigeria through some agents. I have a couple of them. I have a friend that has an FDA certified processing cluster. And once you process in that cluster, you can also get FDA by virtue of that, actually, which I think is very good. We also have FDA agents that actually help in getting your FDA registration. And if you look at the table that I have here, different countries have their mandatory certifications for certain products. So if you have in mind, I want to export to this country, it's always important to find out, do they have any mandatory certification that I must get? Because if it's mandatory and you don't have it, your product will not be allowed entry into those markets. That's why we say it's mandatory. I hope you are following. So for the EU, we have the CE mark. Sometimes you see that on some products you buy, electronic products and other products. You see the CE mark. In USA, there's this UL you see on electrical and electronic products. Then products entering China, you have some mandatory like CCC or TACC for goods entering China. So you need to follow that. It's important. What country am I exporting to? So that you find, you do your, like I keep saying, for an exporter or someone intending to, research is something you have to keep doing. Before you say, yeah, I want to go and get all your facts right, okay? Now, I'll talk about mandatory. Voluntary. Now, voluntary are legally required, but give exporters credibility. They're not legally required, I mean, so they're not mandatory, but it gives you an edge in the market. So an example will be the ISO 9001. It's not mandatory that you have ISO certification in my market. But you know what, if you have it, it's to your own advantage. So if I go to the stores, even in Nigeria, there's a tea, I think it's a tea or something I bought recently, and I saw ISO 9001. My dear, the value I gave that product, I paid premium to buy it because it's ISO 9001 certified. It's not mandatory, but it gives you that market value. It's a business decision. It's a business decision because everybody might be having all these other certifications, but you want to get the ISO standard. So this for quality management systems that shows that this product has passed through a quality management system. ASIP is for food safety management. So I want to say this also very quickly. I work at a consult for the British Standards Institution. We had some trainings earlier in the year, last year. This ASIP was one of it. There were free trainings though. ASIP was there. We had energy management. If you have any other opportunity this year, I believe we're going to bring in some other certification trainings that can also help. Because the fact is, these voluntary certifications, you have to build a system around it. So for example, let's even look at NAFDAC. NAFDAC comes to inspect your facility. There's some things they look at, right? Until those things are present in that system, until then, they cannot give you a certificate. Why? Because you must have a changing room. You must have, and they're looking at what's the process from beginning your raw materials to when those materials become processed and packaged to go out to the market. It's a process, right? So, and that's why we call these things as systems. And those systems must be documented. And before you get certifications, you must undergo an audit. You must undergo an audit. So that's why some of us, I'm a lead auditor though, for 3 ISO standards. So food, I have for quality management system 9001. I have for environmental management in 2001. I can't remember the third one, but I have for 3 ISO systems. The auditor comes to your place. First things is the documentary audit. So, and that's very key for some of you that want to start exporting in your business. You must have documentation. It's very key. Documentation, your standard operating procedures. How do we do things around here? When this comes in, where does it go? So I'll quickly share this. The class has started anyway. So I'll quickly share this. A friend of mine, well, she's my client. She ended up being my client. She was my neighbor. But when I did the business of agro processing, she called me and said, Titi, I really want you to work with me. I want to start producing kilishi. And she was looking at US markets. So I had to visit her premises around the University of Abuja. And I was really, really excited about what I saw. Truly, she's building a system. But the part she didn't understand, the gaps, she came to learn it in that class. And then I was working with someone also that was a very senior person in NAFDAC. So we sat her down and, we now drew the process. So we asked her questions. Because when I visited the place, I asked those questions myself. So when the truck that brings the meat comes in, where does the truck stop? How do we get it from there into the first? There's a place where they now treat it and cut it. Then from there, what next? So we help her to build that. So there's a process. And so she can put that in a standard operating procedure. This is how we take the meat from here to this place. Okay, before you enter where the meat is dropped and skinned and all that, what happens? Do we disinfect the feet of people that walk into the place? So there's a place you disinfect. You change your shoes so that you're not taking those dirty shoes into. As in, it is as detailed as that. And that's how we produce quality products. And that's how NAFDAC will come and say, okay, you fulfilled the conditions for which we can give you a certificate. Because the certificate, that number you're seeing that NAFDAC gives you is a health certificate of health. So know that. To say that this was produced under sanitary, the highest form of sanitary conditions, and we can put our seal on it that is safe for consumption. That's what NAFDAC is doing. That's what FDA is doing in America. Everything that comes in, we've been able to check where this is produced. And that's what the auditor comes to see. The auditor will ask you so many questions. He will see your conformities and non-conformities. And that's why it's important that even while you know about the systems and all of that, your staff must be trained. That's a fact. So for ASIP, for example, this HACCP, Food Safety Management, is an international certification. I love Nigerian SMEs already have ASIP. Some, let me also say that NEPC, I think last year, got about 200 SMEs or less, a few less than that, got them their ASIP certifications. Okay. So for ASIP, you must train your staff. You must have a team that's been trained. Because if it's only you knowing about it, if your staff don't understand, why should I remove my shoe? Why should I wear a coat? Why should I? I remember that even my friend, I had to check where was the toilet located, where was this and that located, to see were there any connections to where we are bagging this thing. It was just that, it was that important. Yeah, people are saying ASIP is rigorous. I'm telling you. But you see, you want to sell in an international market that can say, yes, no, these people we are buying from, we trust what they're selling to us because they have these certifications. And this certification is just come by the wand, by just shaking a wand. It came through a rigorous period of building a system. And I tell you, once your system is built, it stays like that. The SOP is there that guides. So everyone that comes into that system knows this is how we work here. This is how we work around here. And they just key into it. So we have all of that. I have ISO 22000, and there's some niche certifications. So some of you want to export to like Muslim consumers, Jewish consumers. Some people are vegan. So you have certifications like that. You have vegan, you have kosher, you have halal. We have carbon neutral. These are things that do with the environment. You don't need all certifications. It's for you to just know which one really fits what you want to do, basically. There's some certifications also that may even be out of here. And some, like here, we have fair trade. Fair trade is for ethical and social production standards. Some countries that are particular about fair trade want to be sure that your production is not children that should be in school that are producing for you. That's why they will say fair trade certification. Okay? They want to be sure that, of course, there are the ethical standards of not keeping overworking women, underage girls. These are some of the certifications that the world has, that has evolved over these many years. Like I keep saying that you don't need all the certifications, but you might choose which ones that are general. ASIP is quite okay for food safety, really, because it's an international certification anywhere it enters. ASIP has that recognition. In the days we have, even still here, Global Gap is there, Global Gap certifications and the likes. So you have the table from page 71 to page 72. And you can still read up our certifications. New certifications can come up any day. That's the truth. And it's because, see, it's possible also that maybe a country has studied the kind of products that have entered their climb, and they're particular about, okay, no, we have to enforce certain things. So as life goes on, too, countries can enforce new and strict rules. So if you look at page 73, it talks about the certification process, step by step. And this is here, identify the applicable standards that you want, choose a certification body. At the end of the day, when the audit has been concluded, the documentary review, inspection, they've done your factory audit, corrective action. So I'm going to talk about non-conformity. So if I come to audit your system, for example, and I see that you do not conform, because there are steps to all of this. If you do not conform in certain ways, I will issue a non-conformity, basically. But one thing is this, and I think that struck me earlier this year, that you might even just get an audit done first to even see what you need to start doing. So some might actually get an audit done just to be able to see how well they're doing. Because the fact is, once a non-conformity is issued to you, it means you should go back and work on it. So the first audit doesn't usually lead to certification. It might be a second or third audit, really, because the auditor would issue you non-conformities where he sees there are non-conformities, and it's for you to go and work on that. The auditor can say, well, I can see a non-conformity when it comes to maybe hygiene, and the hygiene may come to maybe where you cited some aspects of the factory and all that. It's a non-conformity. So a non-conformity is issued. There may be 10 conformities. You might have 5 non-conformities. The auditor leaves and says, okay, go and work on it. And how long it takes you is left to you. It can even be 2 years. And you do another audit 2 years after that. It depends on you really at your pace. But it's very good. Okay? And even here on page 74, I said tips for successful certification. Start early. Okay? Start early. Certification is not cheap. I can tell you that for free. It's a business investment if you're certifying. And that's why you must really do your export planning and strategy. It's very key. So that it's not something, your market access, your buyers. I think we'll be able to look at a few things anyway before we are done at the end of the day. But there's a case study here. Market Foods got HACCP certification, and he has several steps. I think if you can get through that, it was quite good for her because at the end of the day, she got a HACCP, she got an external auditor, she did an internal audit initially, she built a HACCP plan, she attended a training, she trained her team. So usually for HACCP, they even say, once you attend an HACCP training, you go back and train your team. Very key, so that they understand what they need to be doing, so that they do that. And the external audit happens. I know some people here also have done this auditing before, and they have their certification on this call. So maybe later on we can also talk about it. But that's what chapter 4, I think, that I just finished now. So let's look at chapter 5. On chapter 5, I have product preparation, sourcing, packaging, and labeling. This is so important. Poor packaging has been one of our major problems. Poor packaging and labeling. And this is so key. So if I ask you a question now, if you go to a store, for example, even in Nigeria here, you go to a store, before you buy some things, you pick up the product, right? And you look at it, you check what's there. You check. You even want to check how much sugar does this thing have, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes I personally, because maybe I work in this space, I'm so particular about, okay, is it NAFDAC certified? It even has to be NAFDAC certified. First of all, and I look other certifications, okay, good. I look at packaging. I look at quite a number of things. The labeling. Labeling is so important. So you can imagine if it's a product in Nigerian products that even I am familiar with, talk less of a product that's sitting in a country, on a foreign country's shelf. Your packaging and labeling is key. And why is also packaging important? Oh, Dr. Waka, well, that's good. So I'm noting that right now. So, and you also look at when you're talking about labeling. Labeling tells a lot about that product. Before anyone consumes what you have to sell, they check. They check. That's very important. So let me see what part I want to pick here. Let's go to, so yes, let's start with, let's do part 1 very quickly. It talks about sourcing and quality control. So this is important, and let me quickly say this. Some of you are not the ones running the farms. You're not the ones that, the original source of the product you're selling doesn't come from you. You're like a second level in that whole process, right? So when it comes to sourcing your raw materials, please, you have to take that very, very seriously. You need to understand where the person you're sourcing from is sourcing from. You need to check on all those things. So I have a client, they do teas, they actually do teas, and they do ginger tea. And there was a time, there was a problem, the ginger blight. And for them, traceability is very important. So, well, they switched to another person, to someone else. But we're very particular to also figure where because She was selling dried ginger. They were careful enough to check where she sources her ginger from, the source and all of that. It was important to them because it's traceability. Traceability is very, very important. Where you source from. Because at the end of the day, it might be your greatest undoing. So quality, and for quality assurance, you must ensure quality from end to end. You must ensure quality from the farms to the markets, because it helps in terms of quality production. It could even be taste. I hope you know that sometimes even taste may differ. So if you've been sourcing a particular product from a particular farm, in a particular state, if you move to another state on another farm, you'll be surprised that the taste, the aroma may just be different. Trust me, it happens. It just happens. And when we talk about certification, that's why we talk about geographical indications. The geographical indications talk about the geography, where the location of this thing is coming from, because they feel that wherever that thing is coming from has given it certain characteristics, okay? So ginger from here, ginger from another country, ginger from Ghana, maybe just different in aroma and everything possible. I know I've worked very, very closely in the share sector, and I see that when it even comes to share, Nigerian share in terms of texture is different from the one we got from Uganda, Burkina. They were all different texture. Some were very light. Nigeria is our own is very thick and hard. For some, it's just very light and really nice. And their creams were so smooth and so beautiful. But it's still share, right? So it just tells you that the geographical location of some of these things may also differ. So sourcing, think about sourcing, because we are talking about sustainability, right? And you're talking about consistency. If I buy something from you today, if tomorrow I buy it again, will it be the same quality? Will it be the same taste? Will it give me the same aroma? Because that may be why I buy from you. People buy for different reasons. Okay, so when you're looking at your customer profiling too, ask that question. Some people buy coffee from some parts of the world because the way the coffee smells, and that's why they buy it. It's as simple as that. So your geographical indication is very important, and that's why sourcing. And then from the source, from where you're getting your raw materials, it's good to train them as well. This is how I want you to produce it. There's some input you might provide, even to the farms that produce for you. That's also another level if you really must ensure consistency. And when you have a unique supplier or someone that's been supplying you, they already know what you want, so they're consistently providing the same quality to you over and over again. But then you don't go to sleep. You also monitor to be sure that they're not cutting corners with you. So that comes to the issue of relationship. So people where you source from, be able to trace where the roots of the products, your raw materials, please. Don't even take that part for granted at all, because it can impact on your quality. Okay, so now as the stories are coming, maybe I should just tell some. Because as I was talking now, another friend of mine just exported Gary recently. She entered a really big issue with the Gary shipment. I've shared this before, and I'm sharing again, because when the issue came out of hand, I was called into the conversation. So I sat in that conversation. And the issue was that they wanted to do Gary Jebu. Gary Jebu it's also to the UK. And I think Gary Jebu must be up to like 300 bags, I think. And then they wanted the yellow Gary. So the yellow Gary is they don't do yellow Gary. Now, one thing is this. They have a company that does Gary Jebu in Lagos, and their Gary Jebu is top notch. I know this Gary, and it's in different stores. They have not even fulfilled the markets. I'm telling you, they are good at their Gary Jebu. They've mastered it over many years. Okay, so their products, they've had their farms for a while, and they've been producing. And I'm happy to even say that recently, I told you I spoke to someone in the UK last week. She sent me a list of companies from Nigeria that are approved for them to buy from, and I saw a company in that list. Our company was listed in that list. I said, wow, that's good. So they have been able to at least prove this over and over again. Okay, for their Gary Jebu, they've tested the market. And that's one thing you should also do. Test your local market with the product. Test it first. It's good. See what people say about it. Test it. Run your business here 1 year. See how the product is doing in the market. It's very good, because that's your proof of concept, really. That if this product can really sell here, there's a likelihood that if the where I'm selling it to might accept it, of course, with some tweaks here and there to suit where you're selling it to. But please do your proof of concept, even locally first. That's key. So the Gary Jebu sells very well, and that's excellent. But these guys also wanted yellow Gary, so she ordered from Delta State. She doesn't know this, she has never met these people, but the person she was exporting to was an agent. So the guy, well, they got these particular people in Delta to do them the yellow Gary. Fortunately, the Gary, the container entered, got to UK, and the yellow Gary had turned into black or grey before I reached there. Okay, so it meant that there was what? Moisture. It was moisture content that was high in that Gary Jebu. So always note these things, please. You are shipping food products. Some of those food products might stay like 2 months before they reach where they're going. Some are on the ship, of course. They are on the ship. Some may go by air, some might go by land, yes. But on the ship, there's moisture content, even in the hair. There's a whole lot. There's a lot about packaging. There's a whole lot around these things that makes your product stay on the IC for 3 months, and it will still arrive where it's going in the same state that it left. So there are all sorts of conditions you think about when it comes to packaging. That's why packaging for goods in transit is a big deal. Anyway, the Gary was grey before I reached there. And what happened? The person that was meant to buy the Gary, all the Gary, rejected everything. The Gary Jebu was fine, was doing well. The Gary Jebu was still as good as it was, because Gary is dry, Gary Jebu. But this one had turned black, and somehow this person had rejected the entire container. For crying out loud. Now how, and this became a big issue, because that particular shipment, she had gotten money from the bank, like 20-something million for this shipment. She's meant to repatriate funds, but here it is, the products are sitting there, and the person doesn't want to buy it. So that's the unfortunate part. And now the agent was saying, well, what I can do is to just keep this thing, we'll put it in a warehouse until we find another buyer. Now, who pays for the warehouse? You have to pay for the warehouse. So it's not like here in Nigeria where your brother can help you and keep the Gary. These people, warehousing, you pay per day till you find a way to dispose that Gary. So more cost for her. It was not even nice at all, truly. She was in great pain over this transaction. And she was saying, Titi, that she didn't have so much time to even have a conversation with this Delta person. She just didn't have time. That's the issue. So, man, you'd have time. Oh. Secondly, this was just a few months later, I think like 2 months ago, or 3 months, last month, I believe, 2 months ago. Are we in July? We're in June, right? So this happened in April. She just spoke to me about it and said, Titi, one thing I felt you could have done differently was to also enter a contract with this seller, as in on what we want, and we should have specified what we wanted. And also the buyer at the other end, we should have entered a kind of contract to specify what, I just specify certain things. Because in your contract as well, if there are issues with your shipment, there'll be something in your contract that talks about how you resolve it. So at the end of the day, she was just alone, really, because she didn't have anything to fall back on in terms of, sorting the issue, the particular problem she has now met, this shipment. And then she said, truly, you always talk about contracts, enter an agreement or contract with when you're exporting things of this magnitude. That she didn't do it. And she saw where that led, because it really made her just open to anything in terms of now tracing back, who takes the brunt for what, So that was hard for her. So very importantly, packaging. I've just mentioned packaging in a certain way. Your packaging helps to keep moisture out of your product. It helps for the handling. I've supervised the cooperative export in the past. The packaging was not so good. By the time they got to Canada, man, a lot of the boxes were busted. Some things were poured out in the container. They had to start repackaging. They spent $800 extra to repackage. Something that was not part of the expense planned. So packaging is so important. Beyond the primary packaging of the product, there's the secondary and the tertiary packaging. Okay, so quality assurance is very key for you. Production, which is your raw material inspection, supplier certification verification. Sometimes also you want to buy from verified suppliers. It's to your own advantage. Okay, it's your own advantage if you do so. In-process quality monitoring, batch sampling. These are part of your quality management process. And I put a case study here about the cashew conundrum, actually. So in this case, this one even did the shipment in good faith. This is what my friend did, shipped in good faith. when the issues came up, there was nothing like good faith in solving the problem. No good faith. So because the buyer rejected the goods, okay? Rejected the goods. The buyer told in the contract, it was well said, it was stated there that they wanted a particular not count. He didn't even pay attention to it and got something. So here it was 30 metric tons of raw cashew to a buyer in Vietnam. Excited by the opportunity, but lacking enough time and direct access to farms, he turned to local agents and middlemen in Kogi, Kwara, and Oyo states to quickly gather the required volume. So the name of this person is Ademola. Yeah, this is how much they want 30 metric tons. He just said, Kule in Kwara, oh yeah, I need this, Kogi, oh yeah. Gave them the assignment, start gathering, but he totally forgot that the cashew in those different places have different kind of counts. Okay, so it was a mix of all sorts, and that's not what the buyer wanted. So when it comes to international markets, there's specific. The buyer wants specific things. It is not Nigeria where you can put all sorts of cashew nuts together and say, I should be still cashew. No, it's not that when it gets to buyers outside the country. Reason because there may be something he's using that cashew for, and that size specifically is what this person needs for that process. It can be food processing, it can be anything, it could be anything, but he wanted that size for a reason. So you can't use your Niger mind and say, I should be cashew, not cashew. It doesn't work that way. So Ademola's case study here, I had a loss on this, okay? So because the sourcing was inconsistent. All right, so we talked about packaging for export as well. Here, packaging for export is part 2. We're talking about here, I think we're looking about the Nigeria exports reality. So here I talked about packaging hierarchy. I'd mentioned it just a few minutes ago that we have primary, we have secondary, and we have tertiary. See, when it comes to export, even your primary packaging is very key, okay? Let me also note this, that some countries will not buy your product if it is packaged with some materials. Please note it very seriously. Now that we're talking about environmental preservation, we're talking about greenhouse emissions and all that. So countries, if you package in nylons, they might not buy from you. Sorry, they won't buy degradable substances. I'm just trying to catch. So when you look at page 92, you can see the different packaging, even the materials and what they're best for, page 92 and 93. But let me quickly say here that when it comes to export packaging, page 92, I said it matters more than you think. One, because it's for protection. So I just think packaging is packaging. Packaging is for protection. It protects your product from physical damage, moisture, contamination, temperature changes, during handling, long distance transit, and extended storage. So you need to have the right packaging for your product because you might put a certain product in the store and the quality is good. If you leave it there for 10 days, you bring it out, it might be something else that you're going to see there. Yes, because it has absorbed moisture. Now talk less of a shipment of food products that is going on the IC. I might not reach there in 6 weeks. A lot would have happened to that particular thing. The protection. And one of the things I do, so within our network, I have a packaging expert. So if it comes to packaging, he's the one that comes into that because that's what he does, he's a packaging expert. And Mr. Paul, some of you have met him, he's head of packaging as well in NEPC. Also compliance. Packaging, when does it matter? The export packaging. Compliance. Because on the package itself, okay, so here first, you say this is it, these are my labels and all that, but also it must meet importing country requirements. I just mentioned it too. Some countries have a standard for the packages that enter their country. The third is that labeling, that's identification. So packaging is for identification. Product information, instructions. So you buy a product, you don't even tell us how to use it. Somebody is looking at it and say, how do I use this? It's poor package. So even some of our food processors here understand why it's very important. Say how to use, because not everybody knows how to use it. So it's part of it. Marketing, your packaging attracts buyers because it's about branding as well. Brand image. And I'm sure some of you have bought products off the shelf because you love the way the package looks, right? Just jumped at it. So yes, the aesthetics of the product. Then comes the part of when I now open the pack, what do I find inside? So those things have to be taken care of. Okay, facilitation makes loading, unloading, efficient stacking possible. Okay, so you can read more on that, but durability is very key. A packaging checklist is a packaging checklist that is on page 94. The packaging checklist. Okay, but is that okay? So I can just put this on maybe 19. There's a packaging checklist. How you can also test, but I keep saying, speak to a packaging expert. That's very important. Even for my friend, I've spoken to a friend about my friend that has her factory and she's doing kilishi. So my packaging expert has worked with her as well on labels, how she should label. And she was like, this thing is such a big deal. I said, yes, it is a big deal. It is a big deal. Okay. Right, so there are case studies here. And they are very, very interesting case studies, which I will not go through, but I think the case studies are very, very interesting. One of the things that Garba is from Kano. What she mentioned, what he said was he enjoyed the case studies. The essence of adding case studies to this particular book is for you to be able to now, just relate it to a real life scenario, right? So there's a case study of sports food exposure costly packaging mistake is here, and the lessons learned. One of the reasons why I've also put this case study so that you learn from this mistakes that these people have made so that you don't repeat it. It's very important. Quality, packaging, absolutely important. Okay, so chapter 6, and then if you look at the book, page 100 talks about reflection and action. How are you building a quality culture in your business as a local business? Very key. So, I told you I was going to tell you a story when I'm done with reviewing this book. So let me talk about it here. So early last week, I had a client that I was speaking to in the UK, and the brother was going to say, oh, my sister would like to speak with you. Now, so interesting, right? What she wants is dried fish from Nigeria, dried fish. So she wanted someone that could supply her. And in the course of having a conversation with her, she told me that she had ordered dried fish. I have the video. I'm going to post it on the platform, okay? Because I don't have to share the video with me. I wanted to write an article. And I've not even written the article. But she shared the video with me. My God. When dried fish arrived in the UK, the way she described it, so I wanted her to give me the video and see. She said something, said, I opened the boxes of the fish and maggots, bugs. She said, bugs were doing gymnastics, jumping all over the place. The way she said it was just funny to me though. There is some bugs doing gymnastics, jumping up and down, maggots, all over the fish. And this is a Nigerian supplier. So I had to ask her questions. And later when she said she even recorded it and sent it to the person. I said, how would you, are you so wicked for you to send me this kind of thing? Hey, is that how much you hate me? It was so funny. She said, you sent this. She said, I'll share it. Anyway, the video and the fish, because she said she had to take a video. That she couldn't even eat it. That she couldn't even talk less of sell. So, well, I had to ask her some questions, personally, from what my experiences, my coaching. I said, well, first things first. Where did you meet this buyer? She said she saw the buyer on Instagram. Okay. The buyer is on Instagram. She sells fish. No problem. But when you had this conversation with the person, was there an agreement? Was there a conversation? Was there something in place that stated exactly? Because she also mentioned that most of the fish are broken and she could not sell because she sells fish. Like what she does, when you sell fish, whole fish in a bag, so she packages it actually and sells. And most of them are broken. She could not sell it that way. So I was like, okay, did you even have any conversation with this person on the kind of fish you want? You want it to be whole fish like that, something that cannot break. Did you even have anything? Was there anything that you entered into any form of conversation and agreement? She said nothing. She said nothing. There was nothing like that. That she has even learned that lesson too. Because you know why I asked her that question? when she sent the fish and everything to this lady, the video and everything, the lady said well, that's not her fault. Can you imagine? The seller told her, well, how is that my problem? How is that my fault? What I sent to you was good fish. That's what I sent to you was good fish. Well, maybe when they open it at the ports, when we got to UK, that's when something happened to the fish. So the lady was putting the blame on maybe those that opened the box at the ports when they reached UK. I said, what is this? So you now see why when we talk about, putting some things in place and having proper conversation. And that's why I said, I'm going to take you through contracts. For me, that's probably the most important thing you will learn. Oh, so I said, don't mind that. When I told her certain things, and everything she was telling me was, I didn't. I said, this woman she doesn't even know where she's playing with her business. Both the seller and the buyer. The seller is saying it's not my business. Can you imagine? She's defensive. She's protecting herself. And of course, that's the last. Because this buyer told her that I'm only pitied you. I wanted to put this out on social media and call you out. But I thought of it that may destroy and hurt your business. That's why I'm not doing this. So she now, buyer is now, let me just be a good person, not destroy this woman. But she recorded everything. She wanted to push it out there. Somebody told her, just pity her. But you can't be pitied by people that way. The fact is this, she probably would have even told other people. And this is how it works. In the same market where the buyer is, she would have alerted every other person to beware of you. So if there's anything coming from this particular business, don't buy it. They probably put you in a red. Probably put on that. So this is such a big deal. Now for the buyer herself, she just took it as, on the regular now, Nigeria, you order something on, okay, send it to me, guess your house, you use it. He's forgetting that they are different, the dynamics has changed. There should have been a proper conversation around how I want my product, where I want it, what condition. If you fail on this matter, what are the consequences? Who bears what? All of those conversations did not even happen. She just ordered from Instagram, and she got fish that was broken in pieces with maggots and bugs. Anyway, like I said, I'll put that video on the platform. Okay, it's just for our own learning. Although I want to write something about it, and I'm still thinking about using the video when I write my article. Why it was such a terrible thing. And if you look at the last chapter in this book, chapter 13, refers to Nigeria as you. I think it's chapter 13 that talks about every Nigerian and every exporter is an ambassador. One of the reasons why Nigerian products, it gets to a particular country, once they see Nigeria on this container like this, they'll pack it first. All the other containers are going, but our own is packed first for serious impact. And then it can take another one to, they are checking one by one. Who have you offended? Who have you offended? Hmm? And this is what has affected us. Because not once, not twice, not 3 times, there are reports of very poor quality products shipped into certain countries. So we now become, we are now flagged. We're just flagged. It's like saying you're on the red list in a country. So when they're checking, and the fact is, in export, there's something called the rules of origin. And part of it is the stamp that comes, there's a stamp that goes with every container. So the rules of origin will say, this is where this thing is originating from. That's what rules of origin is. That's part of it. Rules of origin is a big conversation. But part of it is that, yes, you need to know where this product has originated from, okay? So there's usually that on your container that is a Nigerian product. They can see it on the labels on your container. And so they just see Nigerian, they pack them first. It's not a good thing. So I keep saying that, and everyone that's passed through my export readiness class or my export strategy intensive class, I keep telling them, whenever you ship anything, do it right. Put in all the effort that it will take you to ensure that my product is Nigerian the way it should, and it gets there in the same quality that it should be. In some cases, your buyer can even tell you that this product must have a shelf life of so, maybe another 2 years, because maybe the way they want to sell it, I don't know, but they might tell you a product, a process pack should have at least 2 years shelf life. It even takes you also to the point of doing research, bringing in sometimes your food scientists, yes, to be able to give you something that can contend on that level. It is in Nigeria, like so we had a class in Lagos. I don't know whether some of the people in this room were there. There's a lady in that class. I think she did food science or biochemistry or microbiology. I'm telling you, that particular session is still the best I've had in my anything export related class, because she gave us from the role, how microbes, she gave us so much information. Hey God, about food safety. God Almighty. I had to, at the end, I spoke to her, I said, we need people like you in this industry. We need people like you in this industry. And then you see someone that says, I'm a microbiologist, I have nothing to do. I'm a biochemist. We need them when it comes to solid product manufacturing of production, agro-processing of products that meet international standards, have solid shelf life and all of that. We need it. Someone that can interpret to you microbial activity that can happen within a particular moisture content. We need them. So that particular moment with this lady was, we really loved it. In fact, we were all saying, wow, thank you for being in our class. Because truly, she gave us great insights. And she's even working with an agro-processing firm, and I think they do some exports. So I could see our role in that place, that she's helping out with that whole scientific part of what they're doing. So it's crazy. The lady could not eat the fish anyway. Unfortunately, neither could she sell it. Unfortunately, so it was a waste. I'm just saying that every Nigerian is an ambassador. Please, anything we do it well. That's just it. Anything we do, we should do it well. Go to all the length. Chapter 6 in this book talks about logistics and shipping. Logistics is so important in this life. And let me tell you why. Because your product sitting in your sitting room is still inside your sitting room now. Whatever takes it to someone's sitting room in the US or in the UAE is logistics from that point where you move it to where it gets to the buyer. Everything in between is logistics. And the choice of logistics partners or the people you engage is very, very important. So I have stories. And these are real stories because I was involved. And this taught me something as well, Sean. So there was a shipment. So this was also to go to Canada anyway. And that shipment was a transshipment. So transshipment will mean that it will get first to a particular country, then it moves from there. Just like when we fly, we can get to Dubai first before we now move from Dubai or get to Doha. Because it's cheaper, right? I think it's usually cheaper. It's usually cheaper when you break your flights. So in looking at something more cost-effective, please look at it very well so that you're not sabotaging or sacrificing something more important. So this shipment had even left Lagos late already, like 3 months from when the process started. But along the way, where it was transshipped through, there was a bit of a crisis, and the ship was grounded there for some months before the ship could move again and made its journey to Canada. So the entire shipment that could have taken how many weeks took about 7 months. So I think the thing left Lagos in December, thereabouts, and it didn't get to, till about July. And packaging and all of that started since October. So just imagine, okay, I want to export. I started the process in October. We hasn't reached it till July. And it had even left, and 7 months, it was just still on the sea. So just think of all the things that could have gone wrong. And one of the things I had asked then was, of course, we have our freight agents, we have our freight forwarders, the logistics companies that would have walked through. Perhaps if they have also projected of seeing that, oh, this country may go into some maybe there's an anarchy, who knows, or a political crisis, they could have actually advised and say, no, let's not go through this route because we heard that something is going to happen in this country and that can jeopardize this shipment. So that's why I'm saying your logistics providers must be people that are very informed, even about the routes they are shipping your products through. Very important. Your logistics providers, they cannot overlook issues of documentation. They must be very grounded, and you must too. You must be checking documents with them. You are following up, okay, it's very key, please, that's very key. So when we talk about logistics of movement, we're looking at 4 modes of shipment. We have the sea, which is quite popular here. So air freight, you have land and rail. Even now we have courier services. So now people like DHL, FedEx, they're also very good with helping you to courier your products. And one thing, they could be very expensive though, but it just depends on the nature. Somebody is needs to use that. Sorry, mute yourself with whoever it is that is making noise. So for the shipment, it depends on the kind of export that helps you to determine the kind of shipment. And that's why you see those that export fresh cuts, fruits, vegetables, and all that needs to enter another shop as early the next morning. They have to just air freight it straight off. So that it leaves the country in the night, in the morning, you're in London or wherever it's going to, and it's sitting pretty on the shelf there. So it depends on what you are exporting at the end of the day. That helps to determine what it is. How many of you remember the yam shipments that Nigeria made? What year was that? And then by the time it got to the UK or wherever, the yam, half of it, almost all were bad. As they were cutting black. And the funny thing was, before that shipment, there was so much fanfare. It was in the news. So we were loading it in the containers, in the boxes and loading. It was news. It made international headline. So now come back 3 months later. All the yams, it was just a shame. And there were now blames and name calling everywhere. This particular agency did not, no, it's not our fault. This one said, but you people were meant to do inspection. So if you did, there were so many things. And for me, I felt, well, packaging may have been a major issue because there's also the issue of moisture. If you put your yam in your house, I put yam in my store and it's a bit trapped sometimes. Before I cut it like this, it's in non-black finish now. Did we even think through all of that as well? Beyond, okay, we've inspected it and it's fine. Yeah, they inspected the yams and they were fine now before they put it in the ship. But between the ship and where it's going to, did we consider all the other conditions that may affect that yam? And I think that's where that conversation lacked merit. So they say, no, but we inspected. Yes, you did, and it was good. So yes, you did your own inspection. The yam was perfect. But you people issued the certificate. We did, but the yam was okay. That's the problem. Oh, really? Okay. So what happened to the yam? It wasn't spoiled before I left Nigeria. So those are some of the issues we need to think about. Because between leaving the port of Nigeria to when he arrives in the port of the destination country, a lot of things can happen. And also, even I tell you that pirates can hijack your ship. I hope you know. And that's why when it even comes to the cost of export, insurance is also a part of it in case your shipment does not arrive. Oh, in fact, the yam germinated. The yam grew. It was just a shame. So much name calling, blame call. It was bad. But one thing I could see in that case study was that, you know what? We didn't also think about what could happen to this yam. And that's what we call risk assessment. Risk assessment. Okay, so it's on the sea. What can moisture do to this thing? What can this do to this thing? There's even one case study that Tokubo had given one of our classes that I think someone was expecting cashew, and the cashew container was even put close to the engine of the ship. The thing just boiled the cashew. So what arrived where it was going was boiled cashew nuts. So there's a whole lot around risk assessment. I just wanted to know that you have to think of all the risks. What will happen to this product before it gets there? And how do we mitigate it? So that's very important. Risk assessment is something I love so much anyway. Calculate your risk. That was a major thing. Air flights, yeah, I pick it now, 6 hours where I'm going, 20 hours, 18 hours. Air freight is useful for some products, but of course you might think of the cost. But then, if that is it, so be it. If your product has arrived somewhere by the next morning, you get on to the vessel that will take it. That's the hair. Just move it and be going. Courier service can be for smaller, it could also be for smaller packages. We have other companies that do courier. GIGL too, I started doing courier. I hope you know. God is good. Limited, I think. Aero Logistics, Sendbox. There's this organization called Sendbox. I met with one of them at some point. I don't know how profitable that has been for them, but it's something I'd like to even check out as we move on. So key factors to consider, like I mentioned earlier, your product type when it comes to the logistics. You're going to, the logistics options. Your product type, the volume and weight of your product is also key. So there are some that are really like under 100 kg, you might look at courier or air freighting, a ton, maybe air freight, but over 1,000 kg, I'll be thinking of sea freight. You're looking at destination regulations. So it's also possible, some countries are landlocked, so there are no waterways, there are no sea, the Atlantic doesn't pass through those places, no waterways. You won't say you're shipping there, you might do air freight to those kind of places, or you might also do, I talk about transshipment, so it gets to a particular country and then a courier service can pick it up from there. So it just depends really. So when you're discussing logistics, and right now, some countries are positioning themselves as export hubs or trade hubs now. So you can actually ship to them and they can help distribute to other parts, other countries within their area. So for example, I was at the Namibia breakfast meeting and really Namibia is thinking of making itself a trade hub. So you can ship to Namibia and they can also do some transshipment from that side and help you get your product. In Nigeria, yes, there's some states that don't have waterways, so we're looking at inland dry ports. So Kano has an inland dry port. I think there's Kaduna, but the inland dry port has come up just yet. I'm not sure. But Lagos is a seaport, so that's a problem. But the inland dry ports will mean you get your goods there and everything that needs to be done with the goods from customs to what the other agents are done. And even if it's by rail, they take it by rail to Lagos, and then from Lagos onwards to the country destination. So this is very, very important. Customer expectations as well. Some customers may say, I can't wait for 3 months for this thing to get to me. I want it. I say, well, if that's the case, we have to have an agreement around it too. Okay, I'm going to send it by air freight, and this is the cost. So you might have those kind of conversations, right? This is very key. Air freight can take you 3 to 5 days or even less in some countries, in some places. And sea freight can take up to 35 days. Well, in Nigeria, sea freight can even take forever. I don't even know why. But in some countries, in a few days, the shipment has moved. And it's 15 days and you're gone. So these are some of the things that we keep talking about port reforms that we've been talking about in Nigeria. Because Nigerian ports really, time to move, time to deliver, it's probably the worst on the African continent, truly. And there's just a lot around that we need to work about around. And there comes the issue of Incoterms. So Incoterms is Incoterms is a very, very interesting chapter here. So you can see that instead of just touching on the chapters I mentioned, I'm kind of just touching on every chapter. Because I think that may be the best way to do it. So the Incoterms is a very, very important thing here. Why is Incoterms important? It is the language of trade. It is the language of trade. Note it. They are trade terms established by an international chamber of commerce, and they are reviewed every 10 years. Every 10 years, there's a review. Okay? The last Incoterm was in 2020. That's the review. So if I say every 10 years, there'll likely be another review by 2030. And there are 11 terms in the Incoterms. This is very key for you to know. I've stated all of that here, but a few I'm going to mention to explain the concept of Incoterms. Because when it comes to contracts, the Incoterms, there's an Incoterm that guides that transaction, and that's why it's important to understand it. So, are you with me? Incoterms is on page what? Yeah, somebody tell me. Incoterms on what page? Test whether you're following. Incoterms is on what page? Quick, page 105. Somebody's following. Dr. Waka, you're a very good student. Dr. Waka, you're a very good student. I love that. Page 105. That's where Incoterms are. Okay, so oh yeah, Mama Agape, thank you for reminding me. Oh dear. Okay, so this is so important. Every expert must understand Incoterms. Right time to go through this, but I've tried to simplify it as well. You know, this book is a guide, so I've tried to simplify it. On the subheadings, you will see the Incoterms, the delivery point. Your responsibility ends at this point. Then who arranges the main transport? Who pays insurance? What you actually pay for? Incoterms tells you where your own role starts and ends, and where the buyer's role or responsibility starts and ends. And it has to be very clear. I hope you're getting the point. It has to be very clear. I'm saying this because one of my clients, that's how she exported to a particular country, yes. But then, in terms of the contract, the moment it's delivered at the port of the other country, our own part has finished. There's no problem. But then the client was now expecting that should be delivered to his doorstep, but that was not part of the agreement. So my client says, I'm sorry, I cannot do that because it's not part of the agreement. Who pays for moving it from the port to your house? It's not part, you didn't pay me for that. It's not part of this agreement. So I cannot take care of that. So it also means that when the conversations, although the client said he was sick, and that's the reason why I cannot go and pick those things on the port. But maybe he would have sent someone else. Also because he also doesn't understand that when it comes to agreements, our agreement is that it's delivered at your port and you pick it up from there. So he shouldn't even have that conversation with me as a seller, really. Because my obligation has ended the moment I delivered it at the port of destination. Do you get it? And one thing again, I'll quickly say, when it comes to port of destination, and really, we must look at contracts. By all means. The contract tells specifically where the port of discharge port, the destination port, is written there. It is agreed upon. So if it says it should be this particular place, so be it. If you take it to another port, you bear the cost. You bear the cost. It's not my business. I told you to deliver it in Lagos and you moved it to Calabar. What's my business now? So the same thing happens in these countries. It tells you, deliver this here, and then you took it elsewhere. Whose business? So let's look at this. Now, I want to involve you here somewhere. So Dr. Waka is with her book. Can you open that page 106 and read the first one, the X works? The X works. I need someone to read that for me.
Okay.
And somebody
X
else.
works.
Yes,
I'm
X
there.
works. Then, yes, please. What do you see there?
X works at the delivery point is at your factory. Who arranges main transport? Buyer. Who pays insurance? Buyer. What you actually pay for? Just production cost. Buyer handles everything else.
Exactly. So what this means, if your contract is X works, it means that the buyer comes to pick it in my factory. Are you getting it now? So do you know what? Once you pick it in my factory, it's not my business. Every other thing from when you pick it is the buyer's responsibility, not the seller. The seller is just making it available at their factory. Are you getting the point now? So in this case, what will I be responsible for is the packaging of the product and ensuring that it moves from wherever it's produced from to my factory. And that is where my own responsibility ends. Once I drop it in my factory, my responsibility or my liability ends there. You take it on from there. That's what the buyer does. Anything from picking it, so it would have arranged on to come and pick it in my factory, would have arranged the transportation. You might have decided that you're also going to insure this thing because anything can happen to you before I reach the port. All of that. So that's what X works. It's one of the easiest things. It's one of the easiest Incoterms, truly, because it reduces the risk for the seller, really. Because the risk that I face is moving it to my factory only. Okay? So let's look at, can somebody else read what we have under, because I'm just picking like 4 major ones here. FOB. FOB. Yes.
Free on board.
Yes.
Free on board. Delivery point, goods loaded on ship.
Mm-hmm.
Then who arranges transport is the buyer. Who pays insurance? The buyer. And then what you actually pay for is everything up to ship loading. Then
To
the
ship
buyer
loading.
handles every other
Exactly.
payment.
Okay. So you see why Incoterms is important. Because you say, okay, this particular transaction is governed by his FOB Incoterms. That's where we're working with FOB. It shows that for me, the moment I load it on board the ship, every other thing, the responsibility is taken over from that part by the buyer, okay? Who arranges main transport? Okay, who arranges, yes. And in some cases, you can also have some conversations with your buyer, truly, you can. You can also have some arrangements, but the fact is this, my responsibility to this shipment, once I send it to you, please, it's gone, please. It's no longer my business. Then what else? Let's see. So the case where you have insurance here, when it's who pays insurance, we also see some negotiations going on in that case too, really, where the seller would say, okay, I can insure your goods, but you have an arrangement with that person, and that's where we come to the issue of contracts. And at the same time, the seller can say, or the buyer can say, okay, I'm going to insure my goods myself because I have a very good insurance company that can work with this. I know my insurance, my goods are insured if they're lost in transit. So this is also very, very, very important. So let's look at, and those every other payment forward. Let's look at CIF. Who can read CIF for me?
Cost, insurance, and
yes.
Delivery point loaded on the ship. Who arranges main transport is you.
Mm-hmm.
Who pays insurance? You, of course. And then what you actually pay for? You pay freight and insurance. Then buyer handles local destination costs.
Yeah, because it's cost, insurance, and freight. So insurance, you are taking charge of the insurance yourself. So we have all of this Incoterms. Yes, let's look at one more. Delivered, let's see where engagement transfer pays insurance buyer. Yes, delivered buyer pays. Yes. So yes, let's look at DAP. It's page 108. Page 108. DAP, delivered at place.
Delivered at place. Delivery
Yes.
point is at an agreed named place in the buyer's country.
Yes.
Who arranges main transport? You. Who pays insurance? The buyer. And then what you actually pay for? You handle all the fees, including delivery fee, while the buyer pays important duties.
So you see the delivered place. When I mentioned the story of the lady that, the buyer was saying you expected her to ship to the house. If the goods were to get to his house, then the Incoterm for that transaction will be DAP actually, which is delivered at place. But it was FOB that was decided. Then it only means that my responsibility ended when I put your goods on your ship. When it reaches there, you go and carry it now. But it was DAP. And it means that, yes, I needed to get it to your doorstep. So that's where the confusion was. And that's why when you're negotiating your Incoterms, it's very important. But it really helps to clarify to what extent is my role in this matter? Where is my responsibility? What should I do? Except, of course, DAP is DAP, delivered at place. It's as simple as that. There are negotiations around insurance, actually, and it depends really around who should. Ideally, in some cases, the buyer should do the insurance. In some cases, the seller should do the insurance. But it could also be some conversations around those kind of things. But in most cases, when it comes to where the goods are to be delivered, it's very important for you to decide that using any of this, using an Incoterm that clearly defines where the goods should be delivered to. In fact, when you look at DPU and DDP, yes, DPU says delivered at place unloaded, another says delivered duty paid. You have all of that in this table. Just take time to look at it. But the fact what I'm trying to say is that this is the language of trade. And every contract, every conversation you're having with a buyer in an international country, there's an Incoterm that guides that transaction. because it helps you to understand. And you know why it's also important? It now helps you to put a cost to it. So if I have to deliver at place, the cost of how I will charge you, I'll charge my product, charge my service, or whatever is going to happen in between moving these goods to where it's going to get to. The charges are different. The charges are different. It attracts different fees. Different fees. Some are regulatory fees per time, per level of that logistics, that journey. And so it's very key. And that's why you must understand this, what we call Incoterms. It's very key. But it's also good to speak to a very good freight forwarder anyway. Freight forwarders have done this over and over again, logistics. I'm also telling you what it is so that you understand it. But when you're discussing your freight forwarder, you're discussing from the point of knowledge, understanding exactly, and also ensuring that you're on the same page so that nobody will call you on the same, this is what we agreed. And they're clear about that as well. Even some of your documentation would have stated it clearly. So your freight forwarder, your logistics company understands what are the rules governing this particular transaction, this particular shipment that is going on the seas. This is very, very, very important. So I would say, I think that was a year, okay, we're doing some things then on the PDF project. Somebody had asked, do we have a list of freight forwarders in Nigeria? Are there people that we vetted and we know they're very good at what they do? And truly, that's important. So recently, we met the president. Well, this was an effort I was trying to do, but I've not explored even further, but at least now I've been able to contact an association of freight forwarders, and we're trying to see what we can do with them at MPNN, really, so that it's easy to connect those at least vetted freight forwarders with their track records, so that you're not also a victim of a freight forwarder that would not even understand, just like my friend had a problem transshipping to a particular country, and on and on truly. So let me also quickly say that because we're small businesses and we're not shipping like large containers, we also have to think about that. I don't have, some will say I only have 500 kg of goods to ship to my client. And I think it's my madam self that is doing the fish because she's now just looking for somebody else. It's not that she's shipping a container. So we have companies that do groupage. So if you look at page 111, we have leveraging groupage shipping for small exporters. I have a friend that does groupage and she's doing very well. He's doing very well. His business is called Kadan. I think I listed it somewhere. Nairobi. He does, his own is Kadan. So you have some pallets in the container and you pay for space. And that way he's able to ship for many exporters at the same time. But of course, they also look at not grouping strange bedfellows because also you're also thinking of you're shipping this and this. You have to know whether they're compatible in a single shipment. But they're doing well with their groupage. I believe so. I know they started a bit rough, but yeah, I think I'm hearing very good reports about them in recent times. So, and what has that helped us to do? Groupage helps to cut down cost of shipping, truly, because everybody now shares the cost of a single container, right? And that just helps. Usually the groupage companies also want to be sure that they're moving, the shipment is going to the same country. So those are part of things they need to also plan from their own side. So there's a whole lot of documentation here. We talk about insurance and risk management, they're all here. We have a case study on this chapter on page 118 about Celestine's 2.8 million mango loss. Wrong shipping method. He wanted to ship mangoes and he put it on the ship and the ship did not even arrive. How long it's there. By the time they opened the container, the mangoes were smiling to the Lord. So all sorts of things that happened to the mangoes. So it was a full loss. And it was shipping to a German buyer. His reputation in the German market was destroyed even before it was established. And I said, the German buyer canceled future orders and warned other importers against this one because it did not deliver what it should deliver. Now, what he did wrong was a wrong choice of shipment, basically. I mentioned that earlier. Then there was a case study too here about Ibrahim's Incoterms misunderstanding. So it was to ship, so. The contract specified DAP, deliver at place, Rotterdam, delivered at place, which Ibrahim assumed. He assumed it was just a shipping terminology. He didn't even pay attention. He assumed it was just a shipping terminology. Interpreted DAP as that the buyer handles international shipping. He delivers it at Apapa port, paid local transport costs, and assumed his obligations were complete when he delivered it in Apapa here. So, but what it should have been is that it should have been delivered at the place of the cost of the buyer. And the story is here, you can read it up. Because the fact is, when the goods arrived to Rotterdam port, the buyer did not go and claim it. I hope you know, because it's not his work. The Incoterm is what? DAP. So the man did not go and pick it there. And so the shipment was accumulating demurrage fees. Demurrage fees. And you know, okay, in terms of payment, if it is letter of credit, the shipment must have arrived first. It must have been inspected to be sure that it's arrived just as the documentation has showed and all that. So yeah, we have not even checked documentation. It has not arrived where it should arrive. So there was demurrage, and this guy just canceled the entire thing. So Ibrahim was not paid anything. Yes, because he did not fulfill his obligation. That's what it is. So please note that every letter in Incoterms has financial implications. DAP and DDP terms require significant logistics expertise. DAP means you handle every cost up to the buyer's door. When in doubt, consult freight forwarding professionals. FOB and CIF terms offer a safer learning ground for beginners. So FOB is beginners usually do FOB anyway, and XWorks and CIF. That's a very comfortable place. At least you know that either you pick it from where I have it, or I can get it straight to your port and off it goes. I get it to the port, I'll make sure I insure the goods till it gets to the port. You're fine. So you have reflection and actions here. And I really want you to look at reflection and actions really, because it helps you to reflect on what you're learning. It helps you to take some steps as well. So chapter 7 is where you will end for this morning. Let's see. Yeah, I think we've done well. 7, action and action. Okay, yes. So we can do 8 through, yeah, the rest is quite easy. So number 7 is marketing your product internationally. So this is marketing. This is marketing, and this is very important. Now let me say this very quickly. Now the same market, the market you are selling in, there's also a competitive market. And then, okay, so I'm in the space, I'm also in the advocacy space for non-oil export in Nigeria. And some of the things we're advocating for policies, yeah, government, but also even on the part of the SMEs or the exporters themselves, in terms of improving production capacity and other things, so that we can remain competitive. That's very important. So look at this. You're exporting a particular product. So there's Dr. Well, I had some coaching with some women at some point. So there's this Dr. X. Some of you know. This is the US actually. So she does teas. And we had some conversations at some point. And she wanted to start doing moringa tea. So some of her teas are now on some supermarket shelves. And she also sells through Amazon. I was really proud of that. She's done very well though. Over the years, she's branded her tea products really nicely, very nicely. So we're just talking about pricing, and you know, that period she was talking about price of her own packet of, I think it was moringa. She was going to be doing salsa teas as well at some point. And then we're just generally looking at pricing. I think that day we're looking at pricing of our goods on foreign shelves. And she mentioned, there's a day she went to Walmart, then she was looking at pricing. She told me how much she was selling at home. She told me somewhere even 3 times the price. They look like they're the same size, somewhere far cheaper. You know, generally we're just looking at what could influence pricing. Pricing could be influenced by production costs back home. So one of the reasons why we really talk about production back home and how we can make production easier, so that easier, accessible, raw materials cheaper, it helps us to compete. in international markets because you're not selling alone. So she might be selling hers for $10. There may be some others selling that same thing at $5. So if I go to Walmart and I see the same tea, it's the same tea in my view. The buyer just knows this is moringa tea or whatever tea is called. And she sees yours at $10. And she sees another person at $5. Well, everybody wants to save a dime or a nickel or a pound or a dollar, a cent. I'll likely buy the $5 thing, without even batting an eyelid. So one of the things that we also talk about value, maybe, okay, what value does yours bring that will make me pay that $10 for it? So that was part of the conversation we're having together at the time. Okay, what other things I introduced to your moringa, to this whole thing that makes it just premium? And someone can pay 5, I'll be 10. Even then, the other teas in the same category, there were 15 or 12 or 11. So, well, just still sell what you have to sell. But then we're just really talking about pricing. So that's critical when we talk about pricing. The first things, marketing your products internationally. One, of course, your market research. I mentioned NEPC to you earlier. And there's also trade tools. I think in the evening, I may be able to show us some of the tools I spoke about. I think one major one that I really, really love is the ITC trade map that just shows the export potential of countries. And so we can search, okay, this is export potential of Nigeria, Ghana, this is export potential of Nigeria in Greece, and it helps you to see different products, okay? What's the export potential of this particular product? Have we exhausted our potential in those markets? Have we saturated that market? Or there's still a lot of space to supply those kind of products? It helps you to really make some decisions. So focus on that at that point anyway. So market research, please, is very important. Then you have to define your unique selling proposition. Even as a business, as a local business, you must define it first here. It's not when it reaches the abroad, you start thinking of this. Even here that you're selling it, what's your unique selling proposition? That's important. What makes your products impossible to ignore? That's it. That's your unique selling proposition. Okay. So these days, I see people are selling chips, plantain chips, all over the world. Nigerian plantain chips is a very nice chips. Looks like our Ikpekere is doing well in some countries. Why is my own Ikpekere better than your own? So why can't you ignore my chips? But that's your USP anyway. Then, of course, you have to develop your marketing mix. And of course, what I had here was 4. Marketing mix has grown to 6. In some places you see 7, in some places you see 8. But major 4 is what I put here: your product, your price, the place, how will you reach the buyers, the agents, distributors, are you selling on online platforms? I have a good friend of mine that sells some of her things online on Amazon and all that, and it gets to where it's headed. For example, even my books, I sell my books on Amazon, and you can get the hard copies on Amazon. So I have those I bought in the US, in the UK, and Canada. And they get the hard copies delivered to them directly, actually, because Amazon just does all of that. And then there's a price on that. And they deliver also on Kindle, and that's good. Promotion is, how do you also promote that product, really, that people know that you have it and they can actually get there to buy. So there's a whole lot, and it's important to track your performance. You can even test the market. You can actually test the market. You can test the market here. When you also want to test your market abroad, you can do samples. Some of you do travel. Some of you do travel. So because the fact is, some of our clients will be those that we've met in international, okay, you go for something, you go for a vacation. Those are people that you can actually have connections with in the future, even now. That can be your agents, your distributors, people that can sample the products that you have and give you feedback. So that's a good way to also leverage entry. I know some of you are doing very well. If I think John T is here, she's done very well selling online. And she'll share an experience with some of us during the NEST project in Lagos. And that was really, really good. Even in terms of naming her product and branding it, she's kind of done well with that, actually. She's done very well with that. Branding a product in a way that it just speaks to the buyer, and people buy it off the shelf because there's just this impression. And usually when you buy products initially, there's an impression, there's a first impression that makes you buy it. She's been able to master that over time, and that's a good one. So your branding is very important. You can sell digitally as well. So when I was talking about selling on Amazon and other Alibaba, there's quite a number of places you could also sell. It's also see what works for you. It's also to see what works for you. Okay? So there's a whole lot of exploration you might want to do. And you might just try it and see. Truly. You can post a product, see whether people will actually, and you know when you post a product, you're not just posting a product, you're talking about that product. The labels speak, what's the value proposition of this product? These are things you can even begin to test even now, testing your markets. Very, very important. Very key. So I had a client yesterday, I have a coaching with the client yesterday. I was talking to her about having a website. So I put here that yes, having a professional website is great. You can put all your products on there. There's this, what's her name? Afyong, she's in the US too. She does dried fruits. She's doing very well, very well. And people order from our website. She's doing very, very well with it. Very, very well. Can use social media smartly. But you know, something around my friend that ordered some. Understand that there is also a process to engaging buyers, and you are professional from end to end, please. Because usually there's a place someone will find you anyway, but you have to be professional. There are B2B platforms, there are even email marketing, and this is also good. Now, let me tell you this, because it's part of market research. You might find a business, you might go on a website that has, okay, you can kind of explore chambers of commerce in developed countries. So you can even send an email to a chamber of commerce in Miami, in China, and you can actually do emails. You can, because you've done your research, you know that your product could have some prospect. You could send an email to someone. You could enact a conversation, and that could get you somewhere. So think about it truly. It may take some time, but you might hit that one single client that believes in your product. There's one of my clients, I had to send her ginger sample to someone in Germany. I think that was early last year. And I'd linked her to the courier company. What's the name of our courier company in Nigeria? But I linked her to a courier company actually. And the courier company was the one that helped her deliver the sample to the customer in Germany. And I checked on her and she said, oh, they really liked it. So it's after that she was able to ship some sizable size of, something sizable to that, and it was dried ginger, actually, dried and powdered. So she had also is in powdered form. And then, yes, that was very helpful because for her, when she discussed with that customer, the person said, okay, I would like to have a sample. And the sample they requested wasn't something that would kill her. So she was able to send a sample. And one lucky thing that she had was that the buyer was able to pay for the courier for the product to be sent to them. So that was very helpful for her. Same thing with another client of mine. She's currently in the UK. She actually paid for those samples to be sent to her. So there could be those kind of conversations, really. And if someone really is interested in what you have, they might tell you they are willing to pay for the samples to be sent so that they can actually see what you have. Okay? But just make sure that when they see your samples are worthy of commendation. They want to continue doing work with you. They send the samples, they can take it to a test lab. So, they test some of the samples in a lab. So also beware of that. So make sure that what you're sending is really top quality so that we won't be measuring our moisture content is like crazy. And then, in some cases, you have knots and all that. FFA is way above the limits. No, that's not what you want on a first relationship with a potential buyer, okay? So do all you can to build relationships, and that starts with fulfilling your customer promise. That testing phase may determine everything for So if you look at page 131, 132, I have the 70-20-10 rule. I think if you can just look at that, because it's looking at allocation of your budget for export. Okay. Then budget optimization that works here already. Building relationship with international buyers. Then okay, so we talked about adopt professionalism during communication. And this is very good. I think we're almost at the end of this. So I can end with this really in another 5 minutes. So if you look at page 134, it talks about building relationship with international buyers. And let me just talk about this because it's important. So in exporting, relationships are not just helpful, they're everything. Buyers want to work with suppliers they completely trust. I've talked about that. So the woman that sent fish, I said, it's not my fault that the thing had maggots and bugs. Oh dear, the end of the relationship had come. That's the end, completely. The lady has severed, and I'm sure if she's upset one more time, she'll just even go and post something bad about this woman. But note this, adopt professionalism during communication. I teach communication, and then there's a reason, because communication is everything. The way you communicate your brand, the way you communicate, even email communication is one thing that we need to get right in this life. Email communication. And then the person now moves from email, can we have a call? They've been able to even pitch well, another while. Some of us miss it at this point. Because if you now have a prospect that is interested, and now says, okay, can you send us an email of this, and you know, and then it tells you, and it says, can we have a call? And it's asking you certain questions that you are not even forthcoming. It begins to even doubt you that, how do you know this business? So we need to learn communications, please. Professionalism, very important though. I know language could be a barrier. So, and this is another big thing when you're studying your market. You want to start exporting to France and you're labeling your products in English. Because how? It must be, if you put English, put French, there must be a French translation somewhere there. Yes, you're exporting to China and it's a packaged product. There must be Chinese language, or else some Chinese don't understand what you have written on their package. I remember the year I went to Japan, it was so hard for me to speak English and people understand me. It was just too stressful. Even to describe toilet, I want to go to the toilet in the supermarket. I have to be describing. You can imagine you're describing that you want to go to the toilet. I have to even do like I'm sitting or something. I was like, on what? Because I said, where is the toilet? I want to locate. It was one of the most stressful thing. And this year it's been a while though. This was 2010, I think. I said, what? Language barrier is real. So which also means that if the buyers you're looking for, they're in countries where they don't speak your language, is either you get a translator, and that's why when we're even setting up your team, your companies, an export team, and you might pick someone that really knows how to speak other languages if you don't know how to speak it. Foreign languages is very key, even for interpretations and the likes. So communication, multilingual staff. And this is where, you see, I keep saying that if we build our export, if our export strategy in Nigeria is very solid, we'll create jobs. It's a fact. Young people that speak languages will find a place in here because they're able to communicate. They're able to communicate with, when it comes to trade, they'll speak the language of trade when it comes to communication. So where do you also build relationship with international buyers? Events, attending events. So these are some of the things you may begin to think of. Attend trade shows. Some of you go on vacation. Do you know what? You can design a vacation around one trade show that's happening in Berlin. Just go to that Berlin for a vacation now. And then go for the trade show. So you begin to see dynamics of things. Go around, check, okay, ask questions, get contacts. I'm telling you, that's how those things could pay you off at the end of the day. There's something, just walk around it if you can. I'm saying if you can. You can begin to be more strategic and more deliberate about some of your movements these days, truly. Next year, we're going to have our ATF anyway, today in Nigeria. So hopefully we'll all be there. There's a fee to it, but I believe that we should visit. That's international. It's a trade show anyway. It's a trade forum, and it's global. And next year, Nigeria is hosting it in Abuja, I believe. So if you can visit one of the days, do so too, and just look around, see what people are bringing in from the African continent. Let's see what exchanges can happen and all of that. Okay. Cultural intelligence, very important. Page 136 talks about someone that did not understand cultural intelligence. Very key, very, very key. And this, I'm going to end with this case study. The Golden Yam experience is the case study here. Okay, so Sun Harvest Limited, a company with high hopes and quality products, attempted to enter the Japanese market. with a vacuum-packed yam product. Vacuum-packed yam product branded Golden Yam. Despite meeting safety and quality standards, the product failed in the market. Why? So they met safety and quality standards, and this was the distributor's feedback, because the person worked with a distributor. He said customers were confused by the packaging and didn't know how to use the product. So they didn't even put out to use there first. Then they didn't feel like it was made for them. You didn't tell them how to use the product. That was one. And the other things, then there was a cultural oversight. The packaging, they wrap their premium products in black plastic. Not only that in Japan, black is strongly associated with mourning and misfortune. So they didn't buy it. They mistaked it, they named it Golden Yam. And it didn't mean nothing to Japanese buyers. No cultural connection, no nutritional appeal, or reason for them to buy it in the first place. And there were zero instructions. There was no Japanese language support, illustrations showing how to prepare the product, or cooking suggestions that will help customers to use the product. So you can now see where packaging, labeling, the cultural imperatives, language, you see how it all came to be on this singular shipment. And what were the devastating results? One, over 80% of the shipment remained unsold. The distributor canceled all future orders. Sun Harvest lost over $30,000 in unsold inventory and broken partnerships. The reputation in the Japanese market was damaged even before it was established. So don't forget, consumer preferences aren't universal. They are local. So the Japanese people, this is what they would. In fact, my friend Fodinga, what's his name? Maximilian Fodinga talked about, he has a very powerful example. This guy has over 40-something years in market access related stuff. And he said they were to sell a particular product in, I don't know what market at that time. And they said, get 4 for the price of 3. Imagine, he said nobody bought it though. We're telling you to get 4 for the price of 3. So instead of you getting 3, you get 4. Nobody, he said nobody. Then they were wondering, that's strange, because they're giving an extra as a bonus. They said 4 was an evil number in that place. And 3 was a lucky number. So they said, you're taking luck from us and giving us bad luck. That was how they interpreted this thing. And this is a true story. As the person that it happened to was the story. And that's why they realized that get 4 for the price of 3 was an abomination in that particular country. But they never knew. He was used to buy one, get one free from Macedonia, where he come from. Even we love buy one, get one free, right? But you're saying buy 3 and get 1 free to make it 4. And people are not buying. And I say 4 is an evil number. And 3 is a good number, So you're taking 3 and you're giving us 4. We don't want to collect your 4, thank you. And that was how they did not sell one thing. That was really interesting, right? So please understand this. When it also comes to culture, colors, symbols, cultural relevance, they are all important when it comes to exporting. So this is how I'm going to end this today because it's midday. And I believe that so far, we've revised up to chapter 7, and I've been able to throw more light as I moved on, which I think that's what I'm going to adopt. So what I would do with you, what I want you to do before we meet in the evening, is to please, it's an assignment and it's very easy, really. Just open your page 31, the Exports Readiness Self-Assessment Checklist. Please take it before we meet in the evening, score yourself, and then I'll ask you what your scores were when we meet. Is that okay? It's very simple. There are just 20 questions. Just score yourself, tick the boxes that applies to you, then add it all up. It's not about scoring 20 over 20. If you scored 7, it tells something. If you scored 18, it tells something. It's just to help you see where you are at all, and then where you need to put more work when it comes to your journey to exporting. Okay? I hope this morning has made good of your time. So thank you, everyone.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma. Thank you so much, ma.
So let's see. Do you have comments this evening? If you have questions, you can still bring in.
Thank you very much, madam. It was very exciting.
All right. Yes, thank you. So we see in the evening at 7, bright and early, just like we did this morning. It helped us to cover as much.
Thank you so much, Titi.
Really
useful.
Yeah, okay, enjoy the rest of your day. See you later at 7.